Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Aqua. Today we are actually going to start reading Soultide. The warnings for this chapter are Scar being Scar, mention of arson, canotypical violence. Do not expect an outro on these types of episodes. Also, if you have not yet seen the previous episode, please go watch that one before this one because that contains all the warnings and the tags. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for listening and enjoy the episode. Soultide, Chapter 1, A Time of Souls. This was it. This was his fate. He was going to have to accept it. Shoved this way and that, toothy maws, screaming noises in his ears, smothered by the sheer number, until his death came. Grian, are you snuggling with the jelly pandas? One panda latched its toothy mouth onto Grian's ear, trying to chew on it. He sincerely hoped the feeling transferred over to Scar. Get me out of here, Scar. But it looks so soft and cuddly in there. Scar sat on the edge of the pit that contained way too many pandas and dangled his legs down into the bay of bumbling chaos. His eyes shined bright. Ain't green with 3 lives. Mind if I join you? Scar! Grian, Scar replied evenly. The one actual cat, Jelly, squirmed her way out of his shirt pocket and jumped down beside him. She bounded away from the pandas. Smart girl. Grian took a deep breath, trying to collect himself. He didn't need to blow up at his soulmate. It's way past the end of session, Scar. We should be logging off. And I don't want to log out while in a panda pit. Jelly panda pit, Scar corrected. Jelly panda pit. Yeah, that. Which was not really the important thing at the moment. And I need you to log off before me so that I can make sure we don't start the next session on yellow lives. Scar laughed. I'm really not as accident prone as you think, Grian. And everyone else has left. Nothing to do but sit with the jellies. The sun's going down, Grian pointed out, and night meant dangerous mobs spawning. He sighed. Just get me out of here and log off, Scar. Scar laughed and finally agreed. He dug out a grass block in the side of the pit and offered a helping hand to pull Grian out. Don't do anything to the jelly pandas, okay? Scar stepped back to a safe spot, tapping at the communicator on his wrist. I'm not going to touch them. Grian replaced the dirt block, backpedaling away from the panda pit. He brushed black and white fur off his clothes with distaste, only glad to be away from the pandas again. With another chuckle, Scar vanished from Double Life, leaving only an imprint of his shoes in the grass. Bright text illuminated Grian's own communicator. Good Times with Scar has left the game. Honestly. Shaking his head, Grian tapped at his communicator, looking at a chat full of leaving messages. The tab button showed only him left online. A few taps, and then the server was empty. The waiting room, as it was often called, looked like the inside of a villager house in the plains biome. Cobbled floor and oak plank walls. In contrast to a villager house, it was the exact size of one chunk and had no windows. There was also a computer screen on the wall. Large wings spread open at Grian's back, free after being bunched up in invisible stasis for the entire session, but he wasted no time preening. He tapped the prompts on the screen to connect to a different server. Loading. Grian gawked. I'm supposed to be closest to the server tower, he mumbled to himself. What's the holdup? His feathers puffed up as Grian huffed at the screen, one hand on his hip. He tapped cancel, then selected the server again. His vision went black. There it is. Finally. That was weird. Grian glared at the first sight to greet him back onto the Hermitcraft server, Mumbo's decoy vault. He was sorely tempted to see how it would hold up against some TNT, but there was also a morbid curiosity urging him to break in again just to see if Mumbo had changed the inside to something other than a death trap. He squashed both ideas. It had been a long day anyway. Grian dived off the side of the crumbling bridge between his and Mumbo's mega projects, bright red, yellow, and blue wings spreading wide to catch him in a swoop. He flew in spirals and angled his wings around the air thermals to gain altitude, digging a pack of rockets out of his pocket to find speed without too much flapping. Across the bridge, behind elaborate deep slate walls, Grian spotted activity, namely one mumbo-jumbo scribbling away in a book. As quietly as he could, but rockets at the ready in case this backfired, Grian coasted down into the megabase plans, within the walls that had no roof yet, and landed in the grass. He tiptoed towards Mumbo, was turned back. "What you doing?" Mumbo jumped with a yelp. Dropping his book and pencil, he whirled around, red light pouring from his palm. He stopped when he saw it was just Grian, smiling wide as can be, and dropped his hand and shoulders. "It's just you," Mumbo sighed. He warily checked his communicator before stopping to pick up his things. "I didn't even notice you all got back. Had fun with your game?" "I don't know if you'd call it fun," Grian said. "Ska set fire to the rancher's house. I spent half the time building a base out of the wrong material. And when he isn't aggravating our neighbors, Scar is building a panda sanctuary." "Sounds chaotic. What's wrong with your base?" "It's made of wood, and Scar likes playing with flint and steel." "Ah, I see. Well, we've got a week before the next session." Grian stretched his arms and wings with a yawn. He curled one wing around himself to tuck a few feathers back into place, reveling in the fact that they were back. His wings hadn't really been gone during that play session, only invisible to the server as a whole, making it impossible for him to see, feel, or use them. When nobody else had access to flight, that made the game fair. "I'm headed to bed. Did you build some underground bedroom here or something?" "No, not yet, but look." Mumbo showed off his book, flipping through pages full of sketches of complex redstone. "I have it all planned out." Grian raised an eyebrow and pushed the book down so he could narrow his eyes at Mumbo. Yeah, so where are you sleeping tonight?" Mumbo chuckled sheepishly. "I mean, it's not much of a camp, but I have a setup over there in the corner." He glanced across the way, and Grian followed his gaze around the chest monster littering the grass to a shoddy box of scaffolding and a single door. Inside, through the slats of bamboo and string, he could see a chest and a sleeping bag. "No," Grian said aloud. He solemnly put a hand on Mumbo's shoulder. "No, you can't do that tonight. You're coming home with me." Mumbo looked over Grian's head and over at the entity, and he winced. No offense, mate, but have you mob-proofed your rock base yet?" "I know I don't have the bulk of the vault built yet, but my walls keep me really safe." "Not at the entity," Grian sighed and rolled his eyes. It's not really that set up yet. I was talking about going back to that little cramped house I built at spawn. It'll be a little cramped, sure, but you'll at least have a real bed to sleep in. You have an elytra, right?" The two of them flew through the fresh night over to the cluttered spawn area and over a giant tree that bloomed pink, where they came to Mumbo's starter house. It was almost by hope that Grian led them here instead of straight to his own house, but there was little to salvage anymore. The copper box had long been removed, cobwebs hid in the corners of the vault door design, and moss crept up the deep slate walls. The remains of the gas transport system inside probably hadn't been cleaned up either. It wasn't a homely place to spend the night anymore. It was one of the last large open spaces left in their starter area. Everything, otherwise, is taken over by Scar's green thumb and the spreading roots of his large tree, making it the safest place to land. Of course, Green was a good enough flyer to land safely among any of the beautiful chaos. But that was just him. Mumbo, on the other hand, oof! Mumbo crashed into Green, knocking the wind from his lungs. Red feathers scattered into the air. Green groaned at the pain in his back from his wings being nearly crushed. The crash had been expected, yet there was a tiny piece of him that regretted putting himself in the way to break Mumbo's speed. Sorry, Mumbo hurried to get off and offer a hand. I swear, I'm not usually that bad at flying. Could have fooled me, Green grumbled under his breath, getting to his feet. He rubbed his back at the base of his wings. Give me your elytra. I don't trust you with it anymore. He had meant it as a joke, so he was surprised when Mumbo took off his wings and accompanying harness without hesitation. I don't trust myself with it either, if I'm being honest, Mumbo admitted, holding out the gear. Green blinked. Wait, really? Please don't tell me you're starting the No Wings Club from last season back up. No, I just need a break from flying, I think. Mumbo hesitated, glancing at his decrepit starter base and away from Green. My back's been pretty sore since last season, so it's hard to wear wings. I mean, in hindsight, when I was planning my great heist to cure myself of being a pig, I should have gone with someone who was a little more human. Someone who didn't have extra features. Green stared at him. Mumbo, you can't be serious. To be fair, it didn't take much to get you to sign that contract, and I thought you had put enough sentimental value into the peace treaty to walk into my trap without issue, Mumbo. And to be fair, you did walk into my trap without much prodding. The issue lies in that I didn't really consider that you're an Elytrian. Hold on. Are you saying that you have... Which, I mean, I know I can be a bit daft sometimes, but I was halfway to becoming a piglin at the time, you know? I guess in my mind at that moment, I had convinced myself that you had a custom Elytra, like other people on the server, and fully believed that your human soul would be the key to patching me up again. Mumbo! Green lurched forward to grab his friend by the shoulders, roughly shaking him to get him to stop talking. Are you saying you have wings now? Mumbo finally met his eyes, mouth hanging open, but not a sound coming out. Slowly, Green repeated, Do you have wings? Just as slowly, eyes wide as the moon, Mumbo nodded. Green sighed, dropping his head, and his forehead touched Mumbo's chest for a moment. A second more, however, he pulled away, picking up the rejected elytra and harness. Then he grabbed Mumbo's hand. Come on. He started toward his quaint spawn house. I'll show you how to take care of them, and we'll talk to Izuma or Doc about your verp in the morning. Your setup isn't equipped to handle wings like mine. Mumbo didn't agree, but he didn't protest either. Grian looked around, belatedly realizing that they needed to be on guard for hunting zombies and skeletons. Scar had taken over this area for building, and he had an unfortunate tendency to skip out on adequate lighting. His gaze caught movement down the path towards the large elven tree. In the dim lighting, Scar stood there, watching them from afar. His hand hovered over his communicator, but Grian couldn't see his expression. Curious, Grian checked his own communicator. Izuma void. And that's everyone back on the server for the night. Doc M77 has left the game. Pearlescent Moon. friends! I have friends again! Impulse SV. No, 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 no! Impulse SV. Get me away from her! Pearlescent Moon. Frowny face. Izuma Void. Should I be concerned? Ethos Lab. Go to sleep! B00-100. Good night! Nothing from Scar. Grian tapped at his communicator, shutting down the topic before it had a chance to be brought up. Grian. Scar, whatever it is, we can talk about it in the morning. Scar's hand dropped from his communicator. He turned and walked away, evidently agreeing with that idea. It was probably more plans to do with the pandas.